So, welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle, my guest, and my guest that I met on the Alignables. I think it was the speed dating thing, right? For business people.
Yep.
And you and I ended up in a room for 7 minutes and freaking loved you and what you do. And there's so many synergies there. And so you gracefully agreed to come on the podcast and talk because you've got an amazing amount of experience. So let me tell people who you are and why you have amazing amount of experience and what you have. Dr. Amber Cerone, and Amber is an employee experience consultant, CEO and founder of StrengthPoint Consulting. And you're on the East Coast.
I am. Yes.
Yeah. So
Massachusetts.
yeah. So, and my daughter went to Boston College. So there's that connection I think we had when we were talking. Yeah. So I
Yep.
do have a fondness for Massachusetts. Thank you very much. And I think Legal Eagle Seafood is one of the places that we went to
Yes.
frequently. It was a good spot. So the topic that we landed on, so Amber has, and which I didn't learn, it's a PsyD,
Mhm.
right? Doctor of psychology. And I love the science and the rest of, I'm going to call it the rest of the story. And those who remember Paul Harvey, it would be like, here it is. And then Paul Harvey gave you the rest of the story. So that's what we're kind of doing with Amber, because I have my experience, but I don't have Amber's experience and expertise, which is exciting. So the
Mhm.
topic is around the whole idea of words matter, the what and the why. And I've mentioned it before because I coach people that way and I coach myself that way. So we're going to kick it off with this quote because Amber's got a lot more to talk about that. And it's from Karl, I think it's Albrecht. Change your language and change your thoughts. And so the word aspect of it for me is it's words that we say to other people, right? The context setting, the narrative stuff, and it's words that we say to ourselves. And when I think about that, I think about this just the slight change and the significant difference in saying to myself, I have to do this,
Mhm.
right? Versus because now I'm carrying this bag of dirty laundry that weighs 50 pounds, right?
Mhm.
Versus I get to do this. I have the opportunity to do this. I'm excited to do this, whatever it may be. Because immediately for me, the words of I have to do this is it's so heavy. And I
Mhm.
get to do this is this open to opportunity and creativity.
Mhm.
So I obviously have no passion around words matter.
No, it's not coming through at all.
No, no, and I had a feeling that I'd have to really amp it up because people are not going to be able to tell. Um, but Amber, welcome to the conversation, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it and the rest of the story. So thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm excited, just like you. I can go on and on passionately about this topic. So we're in the right place.
So what's on your mind? Because when we were talking about stuff like that, there was the psychology, right, if you will, around, and I think some people need to hear that.
Mhm.
The why it matters about the words that we choose, how we intentionally step into conversations, because you were talking about when before we hit record,
Mhm.
performance eval conversations that leaders have as they start to step into those.
Mhm.
So can you say a little bit more around that piece of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, a lot of the times, well, communication is just innate for us, right? We learn to communicate. We learn in the way that we learn. If we live, in the US, well, I'm just going to stereotype for a second, right? We
Yeah.
learn English. I have a 2-year-old, so this is fresh for me. You're learning what you hear and you're copying and you're mimicking, and that becomes your language. It becomes your communication. So I think it's easy to forget that there is actually psychology behind not only how you communicate, but I think even more importantly, how people receive what you're
Mhm.
communicating. And that's kind of like what you were just talking about. It can be the difference in words, it can be a difference in body language, it can
Mm.
be, if I came onto this podcast and was like, yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Like that is,
Yeah.
people would
Yeah.
be like, okay, whoa, she doesn't really want to be here. So, it's in your tone, it's in your body language, it's in how you're communicating, it's in the words that you use. One thing, even when you were just using that example, I have to do this versus I get to do this. Right away in my head, I thought, I can do this. Like, I am grateful
Oh,
because I have the ability to do this.
yeah.
So just those little tweaks, and that's what I love about, especially working with leaders around communication, because I really feel It's more in how your receivers are taking what you're communicating. That's why it's important. That's why we're focusing on it. Less so to say, hey, leader, I'm going to teach you how to talk. I'm going to teach you how to communicate. Instead, I'm going to teach you the impact, the potential impact that you have to make on people that you are communicating with.
What have you noticed when you've been in the room with leaders? Because I mean, I've done leadership development for years, and you can see when light bulbs go off.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the rest of the story that you give, because I try and create experiences, but the rest of the story, what have you noticed about the impact when you do share? I'm going to call those nuggets or the rest of the story around why this crap matters.
Hmm. It's very exciting for me. I love it. That's what gets me pumped because I mean, I'm an intellectual nerd. I study this stuff and I love it. But
Yeah.
to be able to look a leader in the eye and give them a tangible example, hey, okay, you're going into maybe let's just use a difficult conversation. I call them opportunity conversations
Yeah.
because from their perspective, I always try to ask, like, how are you approaching this conversation? And usually it's, I'm nervous, I'm stressed
Yeah.
because I have
Yeah.
to address, maybe it's poor performance that I'm seeing or something. Okay, so let's flip that script. And how much easier will it be on you as a leader when you approach this opportunity conversation,
Hmm.
asking the question? You don't have to go into a difficult conversation with all the answers. That's the wrong approach. You're
Hmm.
going into a difficult conversation to ask the questions. What's going on with you? What are you experiencing? How can I help you? Why are we seeing this performance right now? It takes the pressure off. And, that's when I see them go, whoa, okay. Like right away, I'm less stressed. Right away, the
Hmm.
pressure was just relieved, from my
Yeah.
shoulders as a leader, because now I can approach this as a curiosity conversation. I want to
Hmm.
find out why. If you've been a good performer and now you're not, something's happening. So instead of
Hmm.
saying, I'm seeing poor performance over okay, I mean, when you start the conversation that way, the person's going to get defensive and they're going to be like, okay, whoa. As opposed to if you go into it, hey, Maria, I care about you as an employee, and my job as your leader is to make sure that you're successful. So
Hmm.
I want to find out from you, like, what's going on? How can I support you, with this performance issue that I've been seeing? And you see the
Hmm.
difference. It's so much different. And right away, you're as a leader now, you're avoiding having to deal with defensiveness. You're avoiding having to have the answers because you don't have the answers. That's the
Hmm.
thing. You have to understand that you need the answers from them to be able to address the symptoms that you're seeing of a root problem. So does that
It's
answer the question?
yeah, I love that. It brings in my head a lot of examples that, through because we coach leaders, right, on how
Mhm.
to approach those conversations.
Mhm.
The other part of it is if you go into it, because leaders will go into it as humans do, telling
Yeah.
themselves a story
Yep.
as to why this stuff is happening. And so
Yes.
if you go into this thing already boxing up this employee as to they're a problem child, I've tried to work with them, in the past and it hasn't worked, whatever that may be. And working with them may have been telling them, you need to get better.
Mhm. Mhm.
And here's the thing. You could have someone sitting in front of you that wants to do an amazing job, which most people do.
Yeah.
They fricking don't know how to get there from where they are today to where they need to go. And that's where I think it's so powerful. If you're the leader stepping into it, number one, you've got a different perspective of the situation. You can step in with curiosity. You show empathy, which is what you're just talking about. I care about you as a human and one of my team members,
Mhm.
but you're also in a position to think critically, right? You've got creative learning center. Everything's off and firing because you're not stressed.
Yeah.
And then you can relieve some of that stress in the employee, because when the employee's in that stress space, they shut down. They're fight or flight, hungry tigers chasing them. So
Yep.
they're not able to think their way out of a paper bag. So I just think that kind of stuff is it's such a powerful approach for people. But you have to leave your biases, your judgment, your labels on the sidewalk, right?
Mhm.
Before you walk into that kind of a meeting, to your
Yes.
point, to be curious. And it's the results, I mean, it's significantly different in the
Very
outcome
different.
of how those meetings
Yes.
are.
Yes, absolutely. Once you take that defensiveness away and the pressure away, like you just
Yeah.
said, you've opened up for such an amazing conversation.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love it. What's been your biggest win that you've seen? What
Oh
comes to
man.
mind for you?
Yeah, I'd have to, that's a tough one. I
Yeah,
think
because I did not ask you this question
I
before we hit
know.
record.
Thanks for
You're
putting me
like,
on the spot there,
Michelle,
Michelle.
I don't
There's
even
just so
that
many.
off the cuff.
I think honestly, I'll just, take like a recent one because it's fresh in
Yeah.
my mind. But I was I was hired by a company to work with one of their leaders. And it's so funny that you just talked about those stories that you tell yourself because
Yeah.
this leader that I went in to work with, she was a relatively new leader, right? So she's learning her job, she's learning her people, and she was really in that almost imposter syndrome mode, like, I don't know
Okay.
if I
Yeah.
can do this. Are they going to trust me like I'm a new leader? I don't know how to engage them. I don't know what they like. So, one of the biggest things for her again was to a couple things. One, reiterate, especially I always use 90 days. If you're a new leader, especially in those first 90 days, your main job is to be curious. Your
Mhm.
main job is to figure out, what, if there's a fence up, why is it up before I even think about knocking it down? Because
Mhm.
as even usually, hopefully, when you come to a position where you're being moved into a leadership role, it's because you have experience and you have expertise, right? And so it's so easy to want to go in and hit the ground running and I want to make an impact and I want to make all these changes. Yeah, that's not going to end well for you. And so that
Yeah.
was one of the things that, almost just slowing her down and really reiterating this is your opportunity and it's your job to be curious. You learn about your people, learn what motivates them, learn why they do what they're doing the way that they're doing it. And that was huge because it was having to pull her back a little. That's what was happening. She had come into this role like excited, of course, which is good,
Yeah.
but with all these ideas and just started throwing them out there. And, the people were like, whoa, lady, like you're new. I
Yeah.
don't even know you yet. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can trust you or want to listen to you. So that was, I just love when when you're working with someone who is willing to be open and take the
Mhm.
feedback and not just
Yeah.
hear it, but implement it. And that's what I experienced with her. So she understood what we were talking about. She was willing to say, okay, I get it. I hear you. I'm going to tone it back and I'm going to
Yeah.
start asking questions. And it was amazing. When I met with her 60 days later, she was like, Amber, it is like, this is just amazing. They're coming
Yeah.
to me now, to ask my opinion. They're coming to me. So just being able to work with someone, like I said, that was willing and open to listen and to
Yeah.
implement and
Yeah.
to see the difference not only in her life, but in her team's life. It ended up being a
Yeah.
positive change for them, which it could have gone the opposite direction. And so that was
Yeah.
very rewarding.
No, I love that. And the thing is, it's funny because when you have somebody like that, people want to come in and demonstrate to you that you made the right decision,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
you picked me and I'm the right person. I'm going to prove to you right
Yes.
away that I was the good pick, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I think what happens is we're well intentioned when we step into that new role. But if you end up taking stuff across the line, being successful, making improvement, and you look around, you got dead bodies lying on the side of the road, that's not a win.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. It's not, again, it's the
Um,
what and the how. It's not what you do, it's how you do
yeah,
it. And
yeah,
that's what's going to be a win or a
yeah.
loss. Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And the thing is, you had to have taken the pressure off of her,
Hmm.
right? To give her permission to go, you know what, you don't have your job is not to make all these changes in the first 90 days. Your job is to learn and understand your team,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
love the thing that you said, be curious about why their fence is up, understand why they're up.
Hmm.
Because I had an immediate visual of those walls or fences, whatever you want to call them, that people put
Hmm.
up. And so, step in and get curious about it.
Hmm.
Understand why this stuff exists. What's the history behind it?
Hmm.
And give people a platform that they feel heard.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
I love it. I love it. What are some other nuances when you think about words communication? Because we kind of stepped in the communication space and not making assumptions about just how people show up on the team. You had a quote. I want you to share that quote. And then there's the other nuances, right, around leadership and communication beyond just words.
Yeah, absolutely. So the quote, it's from Stephen Hawking, and it's quiet people have the loudest minds.
Yeah.
And I really love that quote because especially if we take it and, try to put it into a leadership or, an organizational environment, it is around understanding each of your employees, right? That's such a big part of leadership. Some of your employees are only going to want to communicate in email, and they don't, they communicate better in written word than they do in verbal word. That, some
Mhm.
people, you're going to have others that want feedback every single day, every single week. They want to know that they're doing a good job. They want to know how, they can do better. You're going to have other people who, other employees on your team who are motivated by titles, and you're going to have other people who are motivated by praise and recognition, and you're doing a
Yeah.
great job. So I think, that quote to me, because every person is different, and I am personally an introvert. And so I really resonated with it, because as you were saying when we were talking before recording, as an introvert, so many times your natural tendency is to ruminate and keep everything in your head, right? It goes, I call it thought swirling. So you get a thought, or you tell yourself those stories that you were talking about, and they just go round and round. And then pretty soon you're, oh, yikes, I don't even know what the real story is anymore. But you're really able to hear your mind and hear your thoughts, and listen. And so anyway, that's a rambling way of saying why I like that quote. It just really spoke to me, to get to know each person on your team, how they are motivated, how they communicate, how they prefer to be communicated with. And like you and I were also talking, communication is so much more than just the words that are coming out of your
Mhm.
mouth. It's the tone that you're using, it's the body language, it's the eye contact, it's being able to actively listen and hear and reflect back what someone's saying. That's all part of communication. I think it's
Yeah.
so easy, and so many people just think communication equals words, and it's so much bigger than that.
Mhm. Well, words or and words on a paper or an email,
Hmm.
electronic format. It's like, well, I
Hmm.
communicated with them.
Yeah.
Do you realize that some people on your team actually read that entire email?
Hmm.
Others just scrolled through maybe the first sentence or two.
Yep. Yep.
And
Exactly.
if you didn't have action items or what you expected in that first thing, they didn't get it.
Hmm.
It's so funny when you say that. This was Lori Campbell, who's someone I worked with at Sutter Help, did this. It was like a 5-day new leader intensive, something like that program.
Hmm.
And I think I still have the binder. This is like decades ago, right? Um, but she's awesome. She's still around. She still works with Sutter. But she was one of those people that part of it, she also gave me a template that was this recognition template, to your point that everyone's different.
Hmm.
And it was like, how do you want to be recognized on a scale of 1 to, a Likert scale, 1 to 5?
Hmm.
Public recognition by senior leaders, by whatever, because the assumption we make is, I want to recognize you in front of the room full of 150 people and you have some people that are mortified. I
Yep.
mean, they will
It's their
literally
worst
call out
nightmare.
sick if you think that that's going to, others are like, oh my God, put me in front of the room. I can't wait to be in the spotlight, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's important to understand that
Hmm.
so that your intention of wanting to recognize and praise someone matches
Hmm.
what is recognition and praise and welcome to them.
Hmm.
It was like, what is your favorite candy bar? How do you like? So it had all these different things on it.
Mm.
And it gave me insights into my team. And I've resurrected that thing up through the years with different
Hmm.
team members, had leaders go, oh my God, can you share that with me? Because we don't think about that stuff.
Hmm.
We go in well intentioned, assuming, well, I like this. So if I
Yeah.
like this, everyone else likes this.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to create the space so that people can step in and share a preference that they have.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that also comes down to communication. And it's, as a leader, building that trust and that level of communication with your employees, that they feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
They feel comfortable saying, holy cow, if you do that to me in front of that entire room, I will melt into the floor.
Yeah.
Like, being able and open, like that's the kind of leader you want. If they never
Yeah.
tell you, what's going to happen, you're going to mortify them. They're going to call out, and they're going to be like, my boss doesn't ever listen to me. I'm out. I'm going somewhere
Yeah.
else. Someone listens.
Yeah.
So it is so important to just
Yeah.
be
Well, and
open.
that's where I found the template helped because the template said, I do want to know.
Exactly. You were
Here,
giving them
you
the
have
opportunity.
permission. Yes,
Yes,
you have permission.
exactly.
Yeah, I love
Yep.
that. Um, Thank you for this time. I greatly appreciate it. You and I know we've chatted. We're going to be chatting some more. I love the way your brain works and what you bring to the table. And I'm sitting here bobbleheading with like, I think everything that you said. I'm not going to say much. It's like everything. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So I appreciate the time. The question for you is, what one or two things that stand out for you in a conversation that if people take away nothing else that you want them to walk away with?
Yes, I want them to walk away with knowing that as a leader and learning to communicate and working with your team, you do not have to have all the answers. Take that pressure off of yourself by knowing that asking questions and being curious is how you will actually do your job better. Because I think some people think the opposite. Yeah, so that's one thing. And I think the second thing, well, it kind of just ties together, take the
Yeah,
pressure off, know that you can do
yeah.
that, and then just continue to be curious. I think the more curious you are, the more wise you ask, the more you approach conversations with your employees from that opportunity to
Hmm.
learn perspective as opposed to having the answers, you're going to be amazed at the difference of the conversations. And I'm
Yeah.
almost sad that like I can't follow up with all of your listeners to be like, what did you do? What did you learn? Did you have a great experience? Because that's the fun part.
But you can. All you have to do is follow up on the post and say, hey, so what
Yes.
was the stuff? What did you learn? What were the
That's the
nuggets? What
fun
happened for you?
part.
What were the shifts?
Exactly.
It's funny we're talking about the curiosity piece and everything else and take the pressure off yourself. I'm gonna add just some nuances around the curiosity piece because I don't know that everyone understands what it is to be curious.
Mhm.
And Edgar Schein, great man that passed away, I think it's been maybe 2 years now. Um, he was professor emeritus at MIT, over 50 whatever years in organizational development, wrote the book Humble Inquiry along with some other ones. And it was and it's around curiosity, right? But the rest of the story on that, I think, is around these are things that you step into that you don't know the answer to, nor should you know the answer to. And so it's stepping into the space, even if you're a leader, that you step in going, I've seen this before a million times. Because the longer you've been in leadership, you're going to see patterns.
Right.
But what I encourage you to do is not assume that the pattern that you're seeing, you know what the root of it is.
Mhm.
Don't assume that because
Mhm.
you can have a lot of stuff that looks real similar on the surface that underneath it's different stuff.
Mhm.
So I think that's the piece for me is when you step in, even if you think, oh, I know this, I'm going to act curious. I'm going to ask a question, right? But I'm really looking for validation of my thinking.
Mhm.
Please set that aside
Yeah.
and understand that and I'm going to pull something from a quote from my mentor, or at least the mindset of a Toyota leader, is you don't know the truth in this story.
Mhm.
And this story is about what's happening with this employee or this group or whatever the situation. So be open to that and discovering what the truth is in that story.
Yes,
So
absolutely. I love that.
yeah,
Yep.
that's the rest of it. Amber,
Yes.
thank you. I cannot wait to chat with you again and follow up.
Yeah.
So this is Leadership Sound Bites. Please like, share, subscribe, do the little notification bell, and you'll get notification of that. I will put Amber's contact information in the description of the podcast so you can get a hold of her. And definitely, if you're on the East Coast, reach out so that she can do something in person. And I freaking wish I was closer so I could do that too. Anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And so until next time, have a great day. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.